Hi, my name is Sam, and I am a cartoonist from Green Bay, Wisconsin. I wanted to make a short video series, probably going to be doing 3 parts, of basically just overall help of making comic books, being an artist, and not really the process of start to finish on making a comic book, but more of the mindset that you need to be in to get your work done, or just whatever you're doing in general. I think that a lot of this stuff really just applies to life advice, but especially it applies to if you're an artist. So let's go ahead and get into a little bit of myself, my background, where I come from, and then we'll elaborate on that a little bit. So again, my name is Sam. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio originally. When I was growing up, I had pretty much zero interest in making art. I didn't make any art. I didn't draw, period. All of my artistic abilities or creative side was all musically related. I played drums. I've been playing drums for about 19 years now, I want to say. And that's what I ended up pursuing. I went into the Marine Corps. I did 4.5 years. And then I decided that I wanted to pursue a music career. I went to University of Wisconsin for music production. And after I had gone through school, I kind of decided that I didn't feel like that was a good life path for me. I wasn't happy doing that work every day. And I feel like it was kind of sucking the enjoyment out of something that I loved, having that workload on top of everything. So I couldn't envision myself doing that 24/7 because that's what I was doing in retail. That's what I was doing when I was working in print centers. That's what I was doing when I was working in call centers, so on and so forth. I wasn't happy with what I was doing, so why continue to do it? I needed to pivot and think about what I wanted to do going forward, and ultimately is what I decided to do was branch out, see what I can do, put my creative mind to the test to see what I can come up with for myself. Because as you can see, it's like I started out as a Marine, zero interest in drawing, couldn't draw, period. And then I had gone to music school, again, zero interest in drawing, so on and so forth. Now I'm here making comic books. You can see I'm sitting in a studio. I have a whole room in here just full of art, comic books, and it's basically consumed my life, and I love everything about it. So why should you make art? Well, you should make art for yourself, for your mental well-being, also to share with people. I think that a lot of artists, especially starting out, you kind of get caught in not sharing with what you're doing, kind of locking it away. I am at fault of that, and it's something that I regret doing. A lot of the starter comics that I was making, a lot of the starter drawings that I have or did have, I pretty much threw them away, mainly because it's like I don't want people to see them, I don't want people to run into them, and I tossed them, and that was a mistake in retrospect, because I kind of wish that I could go back and look at those things to really see, the progress that I have made. And that's something that I've since rectified, keeping track of my progress. When I go through a sketchbook, I label it whatever the year was, and then on the back of my pages when I draw them, I put the dates on them, because it's very important to see yourself grow. And you'll get to a point to where you'll hit a wall and you'll get stonewalled, and you'll be like, shit, I'm making no progress. And it's like the progress that you do make, because you are making progress. If you're making pages, if you're making art, it's going to happen, but it's at such a slow pace, it's hard to see it happen on a day-to-day basis, kind of like how when you first started, and learning your fundamentals on figure drawing and whatever, that you're getting into. You jump from not knowing anything to knowing a little to knowing a lot, and then that's kind of where it stone walls. And then from there, that's kind of where you have to beat your head up against a wall a little bit, be a little more disciplined, just keep drawing and drawing and drawing and sketching, really setting your mind to that task. And like I said, if you keep track of what you're doing, it's very easy to look back at your progress, be like, oh shit, that's amazing, like I didn't think that I'd ever get to this point. And that will happen the entirety of your art career. And that's a reasoning why, if somebody, you can see I have this Space Ghost drawing right here. Steve Rude is my all-time favorite. And when you look at my art, you wouldn't necessarily think that he is somebody who has had a great influence on me in terms of the way that my art looks. But it's more his philosophy and his way of tackling art, just staying disciplined, always learning, and just constantly growing. That is why I love art and making comics so much, is because it is an endless sea of experimentation, doing what you want. Nobody can tell you what to do. And that's also one of the other biggest things for me personally. I come from a hardcore punk background. I hate people telling me, not necessarily like what to do, 'cause that's really not the issue. It's more having the creative freedom to do what you want to do, and you completely have that in comic books. When you are in music and things like that, you are still beholden, especially in production, you're beholden to what the band is kind of doing and the direction that they're going into, rather than having your own creative vision for everything. So that is one of the big proprietors to why I kind of jumped into comic books. I'll get off my soapbox here and we'll jump into the next one. So we got into a little bit of, why make art, because it makes you happy. That's really the gist of it. Do it that makes you happy, and then if you feel like you can turn it into a business and make some money off of it, do it. That's what's going to be in the next like 2 to 3 parts, is more or less the business aspect of comics, what you need to do to stay motivated on comics. And those will be in parts 2 and 3, because like I said, this will be a 3-part video series, so you definitely can look forward to that in the future. I'll probably end up releasing these weekly, if not bi-weekly. It's completely dependent on my comic making schedule. I'm also in school currently, so we shall see what we're going to be doing there. That brings me to my next point, is stay in school, keep learning. When I had first started, I was pretty much just like copying work, looking at work like that, and I think that's the best way to learn to draw. That's how I learned how to play instruments, was learning covers, basically learning the techniques from other players. Then you can kind of take all those different things and fold them into your own style, and then you put that into an oven, comes out, and that's you. That's your creativity. That's what you look like. That's your personality. So I started super introverted, as I'm sure a lot of artists are. I had to break out of my shell and be like, hey, if I want to take this seriously and actually learn about art and progress myself, it's like I'm one of those types of people that has to be held accountable. And if I don't have that pressure to actually do something, it's probably not going to get done. So I threw myself into local workshops and things like that. And, they give you assignments and all that kind of stuff. And that was what really guided me towards the correct path. I ended up ultimately meeting a couple of people, instructor-wise, who really brought me in under their wings and taught me a lot of things that I wouldn't have been able to teach myself. And then as well, you have somebody who's been having an active art career for years and years and years and years, mentor you, kind of give you a little bit of, A through Z, a little bit of the basics to kind of get you going. I think that's super important. So if you guys have art classes in your areas or have workshops in your areas, go do them. You never know who you're going to meet, and that is the biggest thing in an artist's career, is networking. Like, you have to network. You have to just spam people with emails. The biggest thing that I always say is Todd McFarlane. He's always talked about how he sent out like 500 press packages to people with sample pages in them, so on and so forth, and then basically all of them were no's. And if people were telling Todd McFarlane that, they're probably going to be telling you that, because he's one of the greatest, as we're all aware. So kind of put that into perspective for yourself, that no matter what, there are going to be people that are going to tell you no. There are going to be people that are going to be stonewalling you. You just have to keep your nose to the grindstone. You just have to keep going, and just don't lose the steam and motivation, because remember, you are the one that's doing it. You are in control of your destiny, so nobody is stopping you but you. And who gives a shit if somebody tells you no or doesn't respond to your email? Don't take it personally. It's business. Just keep rolling and get with it. When I was starting to get a little more serious about like, I can probably turn this into a career, and that's definitely what I'm working towards, is doing this full time. I've been doing it full time since like October of last year, but it's more or less like it's slowing the bleed off my savings more than anything, because I'm not at a full-time pace to where I'm actively making good enough money to where I can constantly do this. But I'm getting there. That's the point, and I'm building and building and building, and I can see it. It's like I started up a website this year. I'm going to be putting out 2 books this year, working on a 3rd book, and I started up a YouTube channel. I have almost 1,000 subs there, so it's, you know what I mean? So it's just slow builds. You just have to do these things and keep going. And like 2 weeks ago, I just started up a Webtoons, and I have what, 50 hits on my comic book, that probably nobody has seen before. Sure, it would have been nice to get that money, but you have to think, hey, this is marketing for yourself. These are people that are getting their eyeballs on your product. And that's the thing to remember, is sometimes you just have to do those things and just get known and just produce work and just get it out there. One of the biggest pieces of advice I got starting out, and especially if you're drawing and starting out and drawing, is this came directly from Jim Rugg. As you can see, big influence, kayfabe guys, the biggest influences on me by a long shot. I wouldn't be making comics or art if it wasn't for them. So I'm forever in debt to Ed and Jim. But Jim has given me so much advice just over the last year or so that I've been drawing. The dude is super down to earth. He's the nicest guy on the planet, and he knows everything about comics. Why not pick somebody's brain like that, right? So when I had first started drawing, I had sent him a couple of like rough cartoons that I was doing, because that's what I was drawing were basically cartoons, your Fred Flintstones, your Scooby-Doo's, Dexter's Labs, yada yada yada. He's like, oh, you've only been drawing for I think 3 months at that point. And he's like, these are actually pretty good, and I encourage you to keep going. Because, I sent him a long email kind of telling him about myself, my background, where I came from. I didn't draw before. He inspired me to draw, all that jazz. So after I had told him that, he gave me the advice of, hey, these are great drawings. Keep going, because there is definitely something here. My biggest piece of advice to you is you have to make sure that you're drawing everything, not just comic books and not just characters. He said, draw pencils, chairs, doorways, you name it, that sort of thing. Then I took that advice to heart, as I do when everybody gives me advice. I started snapping random corners in my house with my phone, and then I would print it out, and I would sit and I would copy that drawing or copy that photo, and that's really upped my skills like dramatically. And just doing that like once a week, twice a week, whatever, on top of doing little doodles and sketches and just whatever. As long as you're constantly making progress on whatever you're doing, that's what matters at the end of the day. The other piece of advice that I would say is I had gone through the Joe Kubert Correspondence School. The biggest thing, and it sounds ridiculous, is just the consistency and drawing and drawing and drawing and drawing and just keep drawing. Who cares if they're bad drawings? Nobody's going to see them, but you have to experiment. You have to see what you're doing. You can see here I have a Simon Bisley Lobo drawing, and just because of that, I go down a rabbit hole. You can see got some spray paint here. I bought a couple cans, because if you look at Simon Bisley's work, he has like this weird spray texture on his pages, and for the life of me I could not figure out like what it was. I could see flicking ink with a toothbrush, like what exactly is going on here. Come to find out, because he had recently done a 2000 AD interview series, that he's actually, that spray paint, so he's going pss, pss, and it's like straight fast blasts on his pages, and that's how he's getting that weird splatter effect that almost looks like an airbrush, but it's not, because it's spray paint. So after I saw that, it like unlocked that in my brain. Oh, that's what he's doing. That's how he's getting that effect. Holy shit. And then I skateboarded on down to the hardware store and, got myself some cans of spray paint. And I've been implementing that into my work. You can do crazy things. So it really comes down to, again, getting into your own personality, expanding on your creativity. Don't be afraid to experiment. At the end of the day, what's going to happen? You ruin a piece of paper, who cares? They're expendable. Throw it in the recycling bin and move on to the next one. Especially if you're just experimenting, it doesn't matter. Like I get brown paper sacks from the grocery store when I do go grocery shopping, and then I'll use that for scrap paper to draw on, because it's good, it's thick, it can hold ink. So that's just a little, I guess, a hack that you guys can use, is brown paper sacks, cut them up, draw on them. The ink will not saturate through it because of how thick it is. So it's just good practice, and it's free. So that's just a little tidbit for you guys. You just have to continue to draw, and that's something that in the Joe Kubert videos that you get through the correspondence course, they just drill into your head. You just have to keep drawing, keep drawing, keep drawing. Some days I just do nothing but doodles. Some days I will sit and do more elaborate things. Currently I have a page from my comic book sitting on my upcoming graphic novel. It's probably not going to be out till late this year and into the early next year, to be determined on that. But I have a page of it currently, so it's like now I'm in a phase to where I'm just drawing pages on a daily basis, not every other day, kind of dependent on my schedule, but I try to get at least a single page done every day. So when you put it in that perspective, hey, a 100-page comic, that's a big thing to tackle. But if you set yourself in a page a day, you get that done in a month and in 3.5 months, right? It seems like it's a big time sink, but if you stay on top of it, it's really not. And you're getting books and you're getting things done. You just have to stay on it. Life happens, things happen. They might slow down your progress, and you just have to be realistic with yourself when those things happen, and don't beat yourself over it. But just remember, the pages are always going to be there for you to work on, and just get them done. And whatever you need to do to get them done, just get it done. The other thing that I wanted to bring up in this first video is actually read comics, look at art, play video games, watch movies, listen to music, suck in as many influences as you can. I see a lot of people, especially when you go to webtoons, it is just an endless sea of just comics that look exactly the same, digital crap. Not that there's anything wrong with digital. And the thing is, I will bring up that you guys need to think about in terms of a business aspect. If you are working digitally, you cannot sell your art if you're working on an iPad. Like, nobody cares that you have a file on your iPad. You can't sell that. But if you're making art and you have a page, look at how much like artist pages go for, anywhere from like $50 upwards to thousands and thousands once you get to that level, right? So you're missing out on money, and so you're screwing yourself out of monetary value. To some people that doesn't matter, but if you're working and making comics and you want to make it a business, or you want to make it a hobby to where you're making some money, that is a revenue stream that you're missing out on if you're working digitally, is selling your original art / pages. But yeah, actually look at art, read comic books, because that's one of the things that I was going to say is like they all look the same. I think that really comes down to is people aren't actually looking at other comic books. They're just kind of trying to do their own thing, but they don't necessarily understand the mechanics of why like a comic book works, why people have their different styles. And then you see a lot of copycats, just like people copying Todd McFarlane, people copying Mike Mignola, and that's probably like the biggest one that I've seen probably like the last like 5 years or so, is so many independent artists especially just rip off Mignola. And it's like, he did that, and it's like that's his style and that's the way that it looks, and that's okay if you want to bring in some of that influence. But if you're just straight up just making a Hellboy comic, you know, with your own characters or whatever, like nobody cares really, because you're just doing what Mignola has already done and nobody's going to do it better. So why even try? Find your lane, and you will find your lane once you bring in those influences. You're reading books, you're reading comics, and you have to stay on top of reading these things, bringing in your influences. It's what I call my creative batteries. Whenever I'm feeling down, I'm like, oh, my art looks bad, or I'm just kind of in a weird rut where I don't feel like making art, or I just feel bad about the ability in general, I'll go open up The Crow, I'll go open up a Red Room, I'll go open up a Street Angel, I'll go open up Dan Klaus's 8-Ball, you know, you name it, and it's like it gets the blood pumping, and it excites me. I'll go play Death Stranding 2, or whatever. I'll go skate around the block a couple times. I'll take the day off and hang out with the dog, whatever. These are just things that you have to do to kind of recharge your batteries. And I think that the best way to do that for me personally is like whenever I'm, again, just in that rut, I have those sources of power. I recognize what they are, and then I always come back to them. That's why I use those examples like Red Room and Street Angel, because like, and The Crow, because like those are my comics that I love, and Savage Dragon and those sorts of things. It's kind of like, why am I doing this? Like, it's just pounding your head up against a wall. It's a lot of work with little return, and you look at those and you remind yourself like, I want to get to this point. This is what I want to do, and then just keep going, man. That's it. It's just keep rolling with the punches. Get in there, make some pages, and don't let people tell you no, and then let that slow you down. You just got to keep rolling. All right, so I think that's where we're probably going to end up wrapping it up here for the first video. Like I said, this is gonna be a 3-part series. In videos 2 and 3, I'm going to really get more down into the nitty-gritty of like the business of comics, the business of art, and what you need to do to like promote yourself, creating websites, that sort of thing. So this is more of a general introduction to like getting your mindset ready to make art, make comics. And I think that, you know, hopefully this video serves for a lot of people just as for general advice, just kind of maybe you're feeling down about your art ability, maybe you're just in a weird spot and you can, you know, use this type of video, because I'm aware there's a million of types of these videos, but the reasoning why there is a million types of these videos is because everybody has their own different philosophies on these things. So that's something that I do. Like I mentioned earlier, I kind of pick pieces and from different people of advice, pick up different things from whatever, and I kind of mush that into all of my philosophy, and then now I'm feeding it out to you guys. So keep an eye out on videos 2 and 3 and be the best artist that you can be, because we all deserve at the end of the day to be happy. We all deserve to make money from our art, and take that for what you will. I'll see you in videos 2 and 3. Keep an eye out for them. Thanks for hanging out and talking comics. Peace.